Hello, Husker Nation. This is the Blackshirt Alert Show. I am your host, TK. With me, as always, is Greg.
Hey, everybody.
Greg, we vented earlier in the week.
Right.
We got everything we need to get off our chest after that loss. I'm feeling a little bit better. Not much, but I'm feeling the sun has finally came out for me.
Well, yeah, I think we just had a little bit of time to take a deep breath and just kind of digest the situation we're in. We've heard from the athletic director, and
which, in my opinion, was a joke. How about you?
It was an absolute joke, Trav, but time heals all wounds, so I feel better than I did this weekend. But, go ahead.
As do I, Greg, but I want to clarify one thing. I still stand by everything I said Saturday night.
Absolutely. Everything we said still stands. And, Trav, should we thank everybody for that huge show we had?
Yes, absolutely. First off, I want to thank Eric Warfield for coming on the show, getting his post-game reaction. That was really cool. Greg, anytime you get to sit down and talk with, Husker legends, it's a privilege. It really is.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And, can't thank Philip Dillard enough coming on the show late. In fact, we were doing the show, and then, of course, he said, hey, I want to come on the show. I want to get some things off my chest, and he did just that.
Yeah, and it translated into our biggest episode we've had, and not by a little bit, by a long shot.
Greg, we trended higher than Lincoln Journal-Star and Omaha World Herald.
That's right, and what happened is, on a lot of the forums, they had the posts to our show and then the posts to the Omaha World Herald articles and the Journal-Star articles, and throughout the day, our post was had more views.
It's blowing up. More
discussion. And, man, it's just awesome to have that kind of love out there from you guys. So
not only that, Greg, the support that just came pouring in after that episode, guys, we can't thank you enough. That's why we do it. We love doing this. Keep up the support. We'll keep doing this show.
Absolutely.
So, Greg, we have a pretty big show today.
Yes, sir.
Got a fantastic guest on. Greg, why don't you go ahead and just kind of throw that out there for everyone. Let them see just how big of a fan we are of the 93.7 The Ticket.
Guys, here's the deal. Every week, you guys, we try to come at you with top quality content. We try to get the former players, anybody that we can, that shares the same level of passion for Husker football that we do, and we try to get them on the show. This week, we kind of wanted to just shift gears for a little bit because we heard from Philip Dillard and Eric Warfield this weekend, and we thought, what, let's get the opinions of some other people. So we got John Gaskins from 93.7 The Ticket FM and theticketfm.com. John Gaskins. He hosts the Gaskins Stephens Show, and this guy knows his stuff, Trav.
Absolutely, dude. He came in. We're kind of joking on Twitter right now about his long answers to short questions, but we love that stuff.
Absolutely.
You just keep it going. We're picking your brain. We want you to pick our brain. That's what it's about.
Yeah, this is long form podcast, so just put it in the background and just enjoy it. Just listen and have fun with it. Guys, I gotta throw this out there. John Gaskins does a show with Barrett Ruud. It's called the Coaches Cabana, every Saturday during games. And Barrett Ruud's awesome. So
Husker
you can
legend.
check
Husker Blackshirt legend.
Absolutely. CoachesCabana.com, and that is on COX Channel 13 every game. And fans can go check out the game if you're in downtown. Go watch the game with Mr. Gaskins at the Main Street Cafe, downtown Lincoln, 1325 O Street. That is the Coaches Cabana every Saturday. John Gaskins, Barrett Ruud. Epic stuff.
Let's get right into that, Greg.
Yeah, John Gaskins, 93.7. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest tonight. He is the host of the Gaskins and Stephens Show on 93.7 The Ticket FM and theticketfm.com. John Gaskins. Sir, our fans want to know, is Mike Riley and or Sean Eichhorst going to be fired?
It just doesn't happen. I know there are a lot of people who think because Harvey Perlman's retiring that all of a sudden the Board of Regents or the new president or whoever the new chancellor is going to come in and fire Sean Eichhorst of enough big boosters. And Steve Sipple reported that he doesn't have favor of half of the Board of Regents. The Board of Regents doesn't make necessarily the official decision on the athletic director. No, I don't believe either of those guys are going to get fired no matter what happens.
So the people on the forums, just to set the record straight, forget it. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And I could be wrong,
Right.
but it historically never happens. It doesn't. Do you guys think, I want to turn it on you, do you guys think he should be fired after 1 year, that he doesn't deserve? Because we opened this up to our listeners all day yesterday. We just put it out there. It happened once in a program like Nebraska. A guy gets fired after 1 year because if he seems like the wrong guy, just cut it loose before it gets worse. Either of you think that should happen?
I personally don't. I think you got to give him time to get his players in. You got to give him time. You got to see what he can do with his players. But I think Sean Eichhorst doesn't really have that luxury. I think he's kind of on the hot seat. I really do.
Okay. What makes you think that?
He went through this coaching search all by himself. Didn't really take any outside opinions. He said himself he had a very short list. Mike Riley was his number one guy, and he went after that guy and got him.
Yeah.
You bring him in here, and one of the things that you say is, hey, we have the talent and now the head coach to compete and contend for championships year one. Not year 2, year 3, year 4, year 1. And you're sitting here at 3 and 6, and then you keep telling us that behind the doors you've seen enough to know that we're in good hands. Fans don't see that. What they see is on the field, and the product on the field is not good enough for what you've guaranteed us. Not really guaranteed, but what you said we would be year 1 under our new coach. This is not a rebuilding year for Nebraska. Okay? We needed no rebuilding. We were winning 9 games a year. That's, granted, when you go up against the heavy hitters, you'd get blown out. It was disgusting. It was ugly. But at the same time, you were still consistent. You bring in a new coach, and he's struggling. Now you're saying this is just a rebuilding year. You got to pick your poison. It's either we're going to compete or it's a rebuilding year. But we were told we were going to compete year 1. So I think Eichhorst should be on the hot seat.
And he is with a lot of fans. There's no doubt about that. And there's a lot of egg on his face for some of the things that you just said. But I'll ask you, who's going to fire him? Who fires him?
That's a good question.
Who fires the athletic director at Nebraska? Let's just talk in reality, like how real of a chance he is at getting fired. Who's going to fire him? Harvey Perlman's not going to fire him.
It's probably slim to none, but at the same time, you got to think of it this way. Maybe Harvey Perlman deserves a little bit of heat as well. And then you got to ask yourself, well, who should put him under the hot seat?
Well, it doesn't really matter because he's retiring, and he has taken. Harvey's taken a lot of heat. Trust me. We interview media, we interview former players, we talk to fans every single day for the last 4.5 years since the ticket's been on the air. Harvey Perlman is a pretty marked man amongst a lot of Husker football fans, justifiably and unjustifiably in different situations.
Right.
But I'll go back to everything you said about what Eichhorst promised us, what we're getting right now, and just, the opinions and some facts that, I have gathered from the kind of media we talk to every day, which is beat writers, columnists, recruiting reporters, former players who either go to practices or have good knowledge of what goes on in practices and what goes on inside the walls of the program now and what did in the last couple of years of Bo. And I thought Sam McEwen put it really well on the ticket today, that it's kind of like seller's remorse with this staff. we don't know. I mean, a lot of people don't know, and a lot of people aren't convinced right now that Riley and this staff is the right staff to take Nebraska back to some sort of promised land. They've proven at 3-6, it's historically, epically bad results on the field. So the question is, how much more time do they get to get their own players in, to incorporate their systems more, and to get the players to buy in? Do you flush out a senior class that has no NFL draft picks on it likely, and you have continued to influx people that are more of your guys, totally different coaches, totally different personalities from the last guy? Do you give them a chance to foster that for another 2 or 3 or 4 years and build to become a 4-team playoff team again? Because if Bo stays, and Sam, again, you're talking about seller's remorse. It feels like Husker fans right now, they moved out of their house, they've moved into a new house, and they go, God, that old house wasn't that bad. I mean, it really wasn't that bad. We were pretty cozy in it. It didn't have all the things we wanted. We went for something new, but now we're kind of in this bigger old house, but it needs serious renovation. And I don't know if I want to spend the time and the angst and the energy to renovate it, to go through all the rooms and, go through all the home improvement people, spend all the money and the time and the weekends and the nights. I just kind of want to go back to that old house. It's just easier to live in that old comfy house. But in that old comfy house, Nebraska was going to probably keep going 9-4 at best with the last staff. And we can move forward and we could talk who would have been better served to take over the Nebraska football program. But that's a question Husker fans got to ask themselves. Were you okay with just continuing to win 9 and hit the ceiling and kind of hit this between the 25 and 40 range in recruiting classes every year? A lack of general development in players, or do you want something else? So, I mean, and I'll ask you guys this. We can spin the conversation forward to, was there a better staff suited to do this, and who was that staff, better coach? Or we can spin it forward to, how much time do you want to give Riley and his guys to probably finish 4-8 this year? Who knows what next year, and who knows what the year after that? But I think by rebuild, it meant a lot more than results on the field. I think you guys are smart enough to know and have consumed that it's a total 180 in personality, philosophy, the approach to a program, the approach to players. It is a total cultural cleansing that is pretty obvious to us is going to take a lot more than one football season to get over. Now, that's a completely macro conversation, 365 days a year off the field. On the field on Saturdays, obviously, there's been a lot of coaching moves that have made a lot of people scratch their heads, and no erasers like Amir Abdullah to win the close games and to make us all feel better about our record.
Right.
Good stuff. John Gaskins, 93.7. John, what's your take on that Sean Eichhorst letter?
Well, do you mean what was in the letter or the fact that he sent out a letter?
No.
Well, let's just do both.
The fact that he sent out a letter to me sounds like a kind of a cry for help. That it is a guy that if he's not worried about his job, he's at least worried a little bit about his reputation. And I read the line from Tom Chattel after I said it on our show. I mean, and we use this line a lot. We use this sound clip a lot. It's not like Kevin Bacon, his character in the movie Animal House at the very end when the Deathmobile is about to, it's just, there's total commotion. He's about to get run over by a horde of people that are freaking out, and he's trying to yell to everybody, all is well.
Right.
That's what it feels like. But he had a lot of the same language, a lot of the same words, and a lot of the same points in that letter as he made when he fired Bo, when he hired Riley, and the things that Riley stand for, and the kinds of things they more so wanted representing the University of Nebraska after a clown represented it for about the last 2 or 3 years at the end of his tenure. And so they believe that approach to a culture of a football team is going to work. And the word rebuild was interesting, and it pissed a lot of people off. And I totally get it. Back to what you said, I was one of those people that predicted 9-3 this year. You look at the schedule, you look at the rosters, you look at what was in place, and it felt like this should work. I'm not convinced this staff is going to be a championship staff. I am convinced that it definitely is going to take a little more time to give them the opportunity to do so. And as far as, but I, of course, broke his policy. Under Bo, he had the policy, I don't comment about my coaches until after the year.
Right.
And that's always been my law as athletic director. And now with Riley, he's going by different laws. And it's just, the feeling I get is just make it one or the other, dude. I don't think it was very necessary, because what was he going to? Did he really think he was going to make Husker Nation feel that much better? I just thought it was kind of like a cheerleader, rah rah, go support the team, fill the stadium. It seems like he's a little worried that the sellout streak is coming to an end, or there's going to be a bunch of empty seats on Saturday. I just think if he was trying to calm the masses, it's just. I don't think he was very successful at that. He probably would have been better off just saying nothing. But then again, a lot of people, they want something from him. Did you guys think a letter sufficed? Do you think he should have had a press conference to answer a bunch of questions?
John, I'll be honest with you. I found that letter to be very condescending.
Mm-hmm.
I found it to be an insult to every Husker fan's intelligence.
Yeah,
I really do.
I did. I actually said the same thing on the radio. I said, how dumb does he think we are?
How are you going to go into a letter and talk about everything that's behind the doors, things that fans can't see, and say that you're seeing enough to know that we're going to, contend for championship? What nerve do you have to say that? You don't go, Jason Peters said a while back on, maybe it was Big Red Wrap Up, said you don't go out and hire a coach that doesn't really have a history of winning championships and say he's going to win a championship. You just don't do that. And I'm so sick and tired of being told that, we're making this change and we're going to contend for championships, and then you release a statement saying that you're seeing enough behind the scenes to know that we're going to go out there and, the future's bright. Tell us what is bright about our future. Don't say it's behind the scenes. Tell us what you're seeing that we can rally around and support this team in an effective manner so that they know that they're being supported. Players should not have to go into the stands and thank fans for coming after a blowout loss to Purdue and then beg them to continue to show support.
You're telling me to tell you what I see that's a sign of light?
I'm saying Icor should have done that instead of saying that he's just seeing stuff behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I think if you insert the word rebuild, which is not a word he used last year when he fired Bo and he hired Riley, but that's his take now, that's his view now, then he is seeing something where, again, the word rebuild seems to me could be interpreted to mean a lot of things. For most people, it means wins and losses on the field right away. Mm-hmm. And, it's understandable to go 3-6 and finish 4-8, 3-9, 5-7 after year one. If you were, 5-7 the year before, 3-9 the year before, you're a floundering program. You've been at the bottom of your conference for a while. That's what constantly rebuilding programs like Purdue and Indiana do. It's going to be bad the first year or two, maybe get to 500 in year three. I look back at Iowa, that went, they weren't very good. They were 3-8 Hayden Fry's last year. He had lost his slip on recruiting. They go 1-10, 3-8, like 6-5 in year three. Boom, they win 11, go to the Orange Bowl in year four. If Nebraska ends up in that kind of place in year four under Riley, will it have all been worth it because it took that long to rebuild the culture, to get his full recruiting classes in here, for his coaches to completely implement their systems, their fundamentals, their practices to new players? Are we willing to wait for that? I don't know. And when it comes back to Eichhorst, what else are you going to say? If you're going to say something, what else are you going to say? Are you going to tell people you guys are right, it's not working out. Mm-hmm. I screwed up. I'm going to quit now. My hire was bad. See you later. If he's going to say something, what do you expect him? Do you expect him to say he doesn't think his guy's going to win championships? He believes his guy is going to win championships, or at least contend for championships, and he might. He still might. There's not a lot these first 9 games that suggest he will, but he might.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Eichhorst has had a lot of missteps as athletic director. Whether the hiring of Mike Riley is a misstep ultimately is dependent upon how much time he gets and what he does with that time. So far, it's not very good. But it seems to me that so long as he's the boss, Riley's gonna get time. If Eichhorst isn't the boss at some point, well, most ADs want their own guy.
Right.
John, you're talking to Husker fans every day, and you kind of have your finger on the pulse of Husker Nation. Husker fans are pretty upset right now. If we don't win another game this year, John, how pissed off are the fans going to be?
We already know how pissed off they are at 3-6. So it's going to be DEFCON 3, but like two of those three teams are Michigan State and I mean, it almost. Saturday afternoon felt like Armageddon, and it hasn't seemed a lot better the last few days, at least from the fans that tear up to listen to shows, call shows, text shows, tweet at the show hosts, go on message boards. I do think there's a large chunk of the Nebraska fan base that is a little more patient, a little more supportive, no matter what. True blue, blah blah blah. But if they go 3-9, I don't think people are going to be too terribly surprised, because by now we know who they are and what they're capable of. They weren't capable of beating Purdue in a half-full stadium. They weren't capable of beating Northwestern at home after Northwestern had lost their last 2 games by a combined 78-10. We thought they had turned the corner in that Minnesota game right there. They beat Minnesota by 3 touchdowns. It was almost twice the number of points that anybody else had scored on Minnesota that year. This year, and that includes TCU. It looked like, okay, you had all these close losses, at least 2 of them to teams that you shouldn't lose to. You can go back and point to some coaching errors, some coaching brain farts in each of those losses, but dang, everything clicked together in that Minnesota game. And then Northwestern and Purdue happened, and so now, you've lost 6 games, and you still haven't played the 2 toughest teams on the schedule, at least record-wise, ranking-wise. Well, I don't think nobody's going to be shocked if they lose 2 of these games. So if they finish 4-8 with a win over Rutgers, I don't think anybody's going to be a whole lot more pissed off than they are right now. But it gets much harder to believe they'll go and beat Rutgers, no matter how bad Rutgers is, because they just went and lost to Purdue. And Rutgers has one of the best receivers in the country, and Nebraska's defensive backs in a man coverage passing scheme have generally made average receivers. They've let them get open and made them look pretty good. So, the Rutgers game doesn't look like the automatic win we all marked down at the beginning of the season. So I don't think people are going to be a whole lot more surprised if they finish 3-9, just because of what we've seen at 3-6. It's a lot of the damage has been done. I guess if they beat Michigan State or Iowa, even no matter what happens to Rutgers, if they beat Michigan State or Iowa, that's the one tiny little hook you can hang the 2015 season on, and that's the exact same thing Riley did in his last year at Oregon State. They weren't very good. They turned it over. They were penalized a lot. Situational problems in close games, blown out a couple times, but hey, they beat number 7 ranked Arizona State when Arizona State was in the playoff conversation in November. They put together and I used to work in Oregon. I've got a lot of buddies who've covered Riley for years. They put together a phenomenal game plan and just had one crazy good night at home against Arizona State last year and finished 5-7. And that's the only good thing that happened all year. If that happens against Michigan State or Iowa, and I don't know about you guys, I'm not too confident about the Michigan State game.
Nope.
But if that happens and the record ends up being 4-8 it ends up being 4-8 or 5-7 with 1 out of 2 wins in these last 2 home games against top 10 teams, I'll ask you guys, how much of a glimmer of hope, how much does that raise the Riley stock and confidence factor for year 2 and maybe a year 3,
Greg? Despite
a lousy record? What do you guys think?
That's a tough question. I was thinking about that earlier this week. I mean, if he in the past he's managed to pull off, upset wins. So I think there's a lot of people that kind of expect him to pull off the upset this Saturday, and I think he's going to get another year regardless.
Yeah,
but I think fans are going to be a little bit more put at ease maybe if we can get the win Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Trav?
From my point of view, I'll just say this. I think if he can get one win against Michigan State or Iowa, I think it'd give fans a rallying cry. I think it's something to build on. I really do. I talked to a Michigan State fan when he was hired, and I says, hey, what can we expect from Riley? And he said, gave us the old, well, we were just wanting to get rid of him, but he said, I'll say this, he's good for about one great upset a year.
Yep.
And
yep.
If we can get this one upset, I think it'll get everyone in Husker Nation to kind of rally around these players, support the players, support the program, support the coaches, and it just might be what we need to build upon to get that success that we all want. I'm not saying we're going to win championships, but I'm saying it's going to give us a glimpse of what this staff's capable of in competing. Then it just becomes the staff bringing in talent to compete with these teams on a consistent level.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. And for both Michigan State or Iowa, because Iowa could turn out to be a total fraud. A lot of people think they are, but for what it's worth, they'll likely be, unless they go and lose to Minnesota, which I think is a possibility, they'll likely be undefeated. They'll have a great record. They'll be 11-0. 11-0 should make them a top 5 team, and maybe definitely in the 4-team playoff discussion on Black Friday. But Michigan State, to me, just would be a more impressive win.
Absolutely.
Especially this is going to be a night game. There's going to be a bunch of recruits here. And so I even thought the Wisconsin game, being a loss to a much lesser team than Michigan State, was an awesome recruiting day. Because especially that moment hit when Janovich had the 55-yard touchdown, the place just going nuts because you have a bunch of Husker fans who are just, they're tied to nostalgia. The fullback touchdown, just everybody burst at the seams. It felt like that was the moment. We thought Minnesota, right. I said a few minutes ago, Minnesota was the moment, the eureka moment for the Mike Riley era or year 1. That looked like that was going to be the moment for Wisconsin, but of course the defense couldn't get off the field. But even with the loss, the recruits saw a 2-3 team, 90,000. They're going, can I cuss on this podcast?
Absolutely.
They're going ape shit after, they're playing Let Me Clear My Throat. And just imagine being a recruit there. They're 2-3. They got this new coach, and they play a hell of a game, and they saw the fans support them that way, and generally I've heard stories about recruits that come into Lincoln, whether it's in the stadium or even when it's like downtown in the Haymarket. Fans are so they're so into the team. They recognize these recruits. They don't just recognize like players on the team in public. They recognize recruits. And, hey, welcome to Nebraska. I hope you sign. I mean, that still strikes a chord, and I don't know what this recruiting class is going to end up being ranked. But if it can be a competitive game against Michigan State on Saturday like it was against Wisconsin, even a competitive game that's a loss, that could be a really good recruiting tool. So, like I said, Riley and these guys have not shown us hardly anything tangible, because the most important thing is what happens on Saturdays.
Right.
And those are the most tangible things. And according to iCourse in that email, and this is where I don't think the email is total fluff, according to iCourse in the email, and according to people I know that are kind of inside those walls, the players are not necessarily bought in yet. How can they be when they're 3-6?
Right.
But when iCourse says there are good, positive things happening, that obviously means a good, positive vibe and atmosphere and professional atmosphere that is a complete 180 from whatever hellacious freak show and whatever degree of freak show that was going on for the last couple of years under Bo. And right or wrong, this guy's getting more support from the administration because the administration believes in him a little bit more. Except for, I guess, half the Board of Regents, according to Steve Sipple. But like, those are the intangible things that could be a good, those are the things that are percolating beneath the surface that might turn into something a lot better that we'll see tangibly next year. But something tangible to grasp onto. There was something against Wisconsin and Minnesota and maybe Michigan State and maybe Iowa. If there isn't, then it's completely understandable for any Husker fan to say, this is the wrong hire. I don't feel good about this. But the good chances are is he's going to get a year to keep that, at least a year to keep that going. If next year is not disastrous and they just make a bowl game, again, we're going to be obviously saying, what the hell are we doing celebrating a 6-6 bowl season, second year? This wasn't supposed to be rebuilding. We were supposed to move on from 9 wins, blah, blah, blah. But they'll probably get another year after that, and the third year is probably the money year. I mean, Rich Rodriguez took over kind of an 8-9 win program at Michigan, totally different offense, totally different culture, totally different personality, didn't fit the Big Ten very well. And, they went 3-9 and 5-7, and I think like 7-5. That was it. At least he got 3 years. These guys should and probably will get time. But I totally understand any Husker fan sitting right now at 3-6. I even think Sean Eichhorst understands deep down in his soul, if he has one, at 3-6, that unless you're 60, unless you're about 60, 65 years old, no one remembers the last time Nebraska started 3-6. We've never gone through this in our lives. Even the 5-6, 5-7 Bill Callahan seasons, they're like 4-2, 4-3, 4-4. It really crashed hard in 2007, and everybody kind of saw it crashing hard. But like, this is just a whole nother world where just nothing gets going on the field except for one game at Minnesota. So it's natural for people to react either impatiently or irrationally or maybe rationally impatient. Because right now I don't know if it's rationally impatient or irrationally impatient. But none of us. I'm a fan. I mean, I grew up with this. You guys did too, your whole lives. There's nothing like Nebraska football fandom, and for better or for worse, and none of us have experienced this. So we're not quite sure how to react.
John, let me ask you this just real quick.
All reactions are understandable. Yeah.
Hang on one sec, Trav. John, we're way past 10 minutes. Are you cool?
Of course, yeah. As long as you guys are cool.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
We sometimes tape interviews, and it's just we can't use all the material we have because we just keep going and going. But no, I'm fine. Keep going.
Okay, go ahead.
You bring up Rich Rod over at Michigan, and bringing in a new offense, new defense. Same with Bill Callahan. When we hired Mike Riley, we asked him how is he going to approach, bringing in this new offense, this pro style offense to adjust to, an offense that is used to like that, for lack of a better word, like a power run spread. And he said he's not going to sacrifice wins for a system. And I even asked this to Philip Dillard, and I think that's what we're doing. I really do. I think we really are sacrificing wins for this offense that is not catered to these players' ability.
Well, okay, yeah, I would say for the most part, I asked Danny Langsdorf, let's go. I want to go offense and defense because I think defense. Actually, no, I want to go defense because and remind me to get back to offense because I can get off track, but. Because defense is the bigger problem in the offense this year. There are lots of there are lots of questionable things Danny Langsdorf has done, plays he has called, situational errors in certain games that could have won Nebraska the game. I get all that. I get run the ball guy, commit to the run guy. I don't necessarily agree with him, but I get it at times. But they're scoring about 30 points a game. They're scoring enough points most games that most defenses should be able to just, not be the worst passing defense in the country, not make guys who are not good passers and don't even try to pass well. Their teams don't even put them in positions to be proficient passers. About 4 of them in a row, and the last 2 have just started to run rough shot. The last 2 quarterbacks have run rough shot on them. Yeah. So I mean, the defense has been much more the culprit here for 3-6, and. There's an obvious case where they weren't adapting to the talent. They just wanted to put in their new scheme. But what did we all say? And this is probably why you, Greg, thought it was, we should have renamed it 93-7 to Mike Riley back in August before the season started. As part of it was banker equals Narduzzi equals simple scheme equals stop the run. Everybody got so fired up. We had Grant Wistrom on our show, and when we played the Mark Banker clip for him, you got 2 assignments on defense. Beat the guy across the line of scrimmage from you, and then get your ass to the ball. Oh, God. I mean, the lather that Grant Wistrom and every Husker fan was in, because that's Charlie McBride. That's right. In the most simplistic terms. That was Charlie McBride's defensive philosophy is generally back. Yay! Well, I mean, it turned out, and it's simpler too. It's not, like Josh Bandera said, it's not the telephone book, the dictionary that Bo gave us. It's a grade school book, and everybody got a chuckle out of that. And Banderas would have transferred had Bo not been fired, by the way. And everybody's, it's bluebirds, lollipops, unicorns, rainbows, all off season long with this. And it's been pretty evident by the results on the field, that, it's really hard to stop teams from looking really good in the passing game if you don't have a pass rush. Mm-hmm. We've seen a lot of technical problems from start to finish of plays with the defensive backs. I think if one guy's should get fired from the staff, it's Brian Stewart. And Bruce Reed. Special teams is a whole another conversation. But when you're talking about adapting what you had, the strengths of your system to your players' strengths, obviously that wasn't done on defense. And we all were sold on it. No one questioned that. They're like, go ahead and make the defensive change. It's an easier defense to play. It's simpler. Right. More hats to the ball. And the rush defense has been really good, except for on lumbering quarterbacks the last 2 weeks. So that was a square peg round hole we thought wouldn't be. It would, that would just take care of itself. But what it turned out was a really good safety like Nate Geary's all of a sudden used to helping the run, not pass coverage, and he gets lost somewhere in the middle. And he had a real tough stretch in the middle of the season. And the cornerbacks did not come here to defend man coverage. They just
right.
And they've been used to getting help, and they just don't know what they're doing, and their technique is bad. And there's just not enough talent or depth at defensive end on the edge to get the quarterbacks to throw the quarterback's timing off. So the timing's perfect. The receiver, most receivers are just getting in position to make catches, and it's just been a shit show defending the pass. And that's been basically the number one reason why Nebraska's at 3-6. So that was a failure to adapt to the strengths and what those players knew. But as we saw last year, they got lost in translation in Bo's scheme.
Right.
So, and I don't know if the answer, a lot of people want Banker fired because of the results and his really bad, crappy results his last 2 years at Oregon State. I would probably lean towards, for better or for worse, give him another year to keep getting those guys more familiar with that so-called simpler system. Hopefully recruit a couple of cornerbacks. I mean, if you have great cornerbacks in that scheme, then you're gold. And Riley has used that word, gold. In this scheme, cornerbacks are gold who can handle one-on-one coverage. Offensively, I asked Danny Langsdorf that exact question last night. I believe Sam McEwen asked Mike Riley the same question on Monday at the press conference. How, you said you're going to mesh what this offense did well with your system. How well have you done at that? And my general I can't give you Langsdorf's answer verbatim. And he put some window dressing on it because he doesn't want to throw his players under the bus.
Of course.
But first of all, he said, he tried to say we have kept some things from the last offense. He said quarterback option run and other things that this program has done. And it kind of reminded me, remember the guy from Chevy Trucks who handed out the World Series MVP trophy to Madison Bumgarner last year, the technology and stuff guy?
Yeah.
You remember that? Here's this Chevy truck. It's got all kinds of technology. And he didn't know. He just froze in the moment, didn't know what to say. And just, it kind of felt like what Langsdorf was doing. He's like, well, we've incorporated the quarterback run game here and there and other things. and he just kept on talking, so nobody went back and pressed him on what are those other things. I had about 4 other questions about the run game to ask him. But I got little subtle hints in that question about adapting the scheme. So to answer your question in a very long way offensively, no, because what Langsdorf went on to say in that was they seem to be getting the terminology better. It was tough for them to learn the new terminology. I think what we see a lot of what Beck likes to do, but what Langsdorf likes to do in an offense, there's some differences in in specific schemes and positions. It ain't that different. Beck liked to pass. Beck liked to use the run to set up the pass. Beck likes to think in terms of that. Beck would throw caution into the wind, literally, like Purdue at home last year, the same way Langsdorf did at Illinois this year. They're guys that love to show you what they got at offensive coordinator and do some cool, catchy things. But the terminology is different. So what Langsdorf said was they've really learned the terminology. They've got a much better grasp on it. And just the overall answer I got from Langsdorf is the only way we really adapted was, okay, we're not used to having a running quarterback, so we've let Tommy loose. Finally, it took him 4 or 5 games to do it, but we're letting Tommy loose 4, 5, 7 times a game because that can be the great eraser in the run game and get us third down conversions. And but that's about it. Other than that, the whole meshing thing has been about the players adapting to their system, adapting to what they knew best at Oregon State. And I don't have a problem with that. And I understand you felt like as a fan you were lied to, but that's kind of I think those are just being good politicians, so we could all nod our heads and go, oh, okay, good. We'll see a meshing. Okay, that sounds good, Mike. And my co-host Tom Stevens, to his credit, we argue a lot every day, and he's just not sold on this offense at all in this part of the country. But I mean, he said from day one they're lying. I mean, everything short, they're lying. They're just lying to us. And but I'll also say this about the offense and where it's gone and what its struggles have been. And I don't know if if this was coming up in your questions, but what I gathered from Langsdorf, I asked him about 4 questions about the run game, the lack of a good run game, his abandoning of it so easily and so often in some of these games. There's just no trust in the offensive line. And I don't think there's a lot of trust in the offensive line from the offensive line coach. When you go back to the problems at the core of the run game, whether it's establishing it on first down throughout a game or on third and short when you're trying to salt away a game, when you really need those 3 or 4 yards like BYU early in the year or any other game, there's not a lot of trust in the offensive line, one-on-one blocking. We had Rob Zadiska, who's got a much better eye for offensive linemen than I do. He was pretty good at it on the pipeline in 1994. He just doesn't think there's just not much talent there. That's one area of the field where you can say that Nebraska just doesn't have a whole lot of talent and depth. And you could see it in some games last year where Amir Abdullah was the great eraser. I mean, the holes just were not big enough for him. Sometimes he would find his way. That Rutgers game, he had 2 long runs. One was for a touchdown. I think one set up a touchdown. Other than that, the run game was pretty crappy in that game. Purdue game, Amir gets injured. Nebraska scores 28 points, and Tim Beck's throwing it all over the yard on a windy day. They scored 28 points before they get a garbage touchdown at the end because Purdue was trying to still come back with 2 minutes left. Now they 2 scores. And there were wins last year, McNeese State, where Amir Abdullah makes everybody look a little bit better. That's just for real. So the offensive line isn't that different. It's not that good. And in Rob's mind, the offensive line is better coached and has played above its talent level in some games this year, not necessarily the last couple. But it's clear in Langsdorf's answers, if you go past the window dressing in the most subtle way, there's just not a lot with the offensive line for him to work with, especially when you're trying to establish a run game, even if his idea of a run game is what you do to set up pretty passes. You know what I mean? And then there's not a lot of trust in the running backs because he said the running backs are having a hard time finding the holes to hit. And they're doing too much dancing, and that's what we've seen from Terrell Newby all year. And so whether he abandons it too quickly or not, that's just what he's working with. Whether the practices were physical enough in spring and August to have the mindset, the mentality that we're going to run the ball, and we're going to run the ball well, damn it. it's just not there, and that's why we see a lot of Langsdorff doing what he does.
Greg?
Guys, epic stuff from John Gaskins, 93.7 The Ticket. John, can I throw you a few softballs?
No, I kind of like the fastballs, but go ahead, yeah. This is fun. I'm usually the one, asking the questions. So
yeah,
go ahead.
I mean, this is why we love 93.7 and the Gaskins Stephens Show. I mean, you're just extremely knowledgeable, and your insight is just incredible.
No, I want to correct you there. I am not that knowledgeable. I think that's obvious. I didn't play the game. It's just that we have a lot of really good guests on our show that were former players, that are media members I've known for a long time, and that Tom has known for a long time. And we have people who know what's going on in the football program and do a good job of reporting and observing, and B, we have a lot of former players who, again, most of our lives we've known good Nebraska football, and so guys who have been part of a successful Nebraska football around coaches who taught it well and got results. And so a lot of what I'm saying is off a lot of those two avenues. It's not, I mean, that's how I don't know about the other guys at the station. Mike Welch has a really good keen eye for X's and O's, but I just want to correct you. We're not that knowledgeable, but we get a lot of good knowledge from. I'm just kind of secondhanding this to you guys.
Well, this is great stuff. We're really enjoying this conversation. We love talking Husker football. So
I do too. It's not a bad gig. So
John, let's talk.
Sorry, go on.
Let's talk about 93.7 for a little bit. Has it been more tense this season at the 93.7 The Ticket FM offices with a kind of shitty Nebraska football team than if we did? Do you mean like on the air, or just like in general? Like what it's like in the building? When you walk in the door in the mornings, I mean, can you cut the tension with a knife?
No, not really. This job is fun, and trust me, I've thought about this. It's a good question. I think. Actually, Dr. Rob Zadis has said this today as a guest on our show. He said this must be great for you guys because radio's at its best when there's trouble in paradise.
Right.
And if that statement were true, then it's been a very fruitful 4 years. When Bo got fired, and you guys probably know this, but I was about as loud of an anti-Bo guy as you could get.
Oh, yeah.
Still am. I had to learn how to just develop a lot of thick skin with a lot of people who vehemently disagreed with me about that. And our station in its infancy kind of had to learn to deal with people who didn't feel like-minded to our opinions and, complained about that. But at the same time, Bo was gold for us and media because he did it all by himself. Yeah. He had those audio tapes. He had his behavior on the sidelines. He had some great come from behind wins. He had some fun audio that, how about Stanley, after the Ohio State game. On the same night, he stared down Dirk at the press conference, which made SportsCenter national TV immediately. He stared down Dirk. And that was the exact same night where he went off on the fucking Fairweather fans. And that was just one night. That was our first year on the air. And so that supplied some great drama for everybody. It was a great Husker win that night. But then, I mean, that's just one game that was the gift that kept on giving because the audio tape gets revealed at a very timely time, right after the UCLA loss 2 years later. We're not the ones doing that. That's just kind of a maniac who just, it was never a dull moment. And so actually there's a radio host in Kansas City, Bob Fesco, who's brilliant at morning radio, very entertaining. And he texted me the day Bill got fired, and he's like, well, this must suck. And I'm like, as a fan, no, I'm tired of this guy. I want a better football team. And to a degree, I feel like an old man, but I kind of want a better representative for the university. And he's like, yeah, but you work in radio. You're not going to get good luck getting somebody better than that to work with, just as far as drama and sideshows go. Now we've just got a crappier football team than we've ever been dealt with a more boring coach. Who is actually handling the crappiness of his football team publicly, like, flawlessly. I mean, you just can't, and nobody's talking about that because you don't know. You only notice the guy who's being short and curt and dropping F-bombs and being rude. You don't notice the guy who's just being incredibly, completely professional and understanding of what the media is trying to do and how the fans feel. Okay. So anyway, tension in the ticket offices. No, because I'm sure it's just kind of like the football team. This sounds really corny and cheesy, but we kind of have a job to do every day. Every day, every day is a new show, and every day kind of takes on a life of its own. So we're just kind of in the business of interesting. What I told Dr. Rob when he said business is always good when there's trouble in paradise, my immediate response is, yes, but it would be nice to just be talking about good football, like for a few consecutive weeks, for one season, like every week, just good football leading to hopeful, big stakes, football games at the end of the year. Even with 6-1 and 7-1 starts with Bo, you kind of always were wondering when the tidal wave was going to come and wipe you out at the end of the year, and that's what usually happened. So I don't love talking about a bad football team and hearing from really, really angry fans and some fans who are really angry at the radio station for however way they think we're spinning reality. Mm-hmm. But it's never a dull moment, and we got to figure out every day what the fans want to hear about. This week, to me, just in my show's estimation, even with a huge game against Michigan State, where people normally would just want to talk about matchups and how is Nebraska going to win this game, which we probably will now that it's late in the week. But for the first 3 days of this week, it's been pretty much what the hell's going on? And it's not too much nuts and bolts football. It's not a lot of X's and O's. It's, should Nebraska fire Mike Riley after 1 year the same way Oklahoma fired Howard Schnellenberger? What the hell is Sean Eichhorst doing with that email? Today, Terry Pettit, I'm sure you guys saw this, the former volleyball coach, really respected member of the Nebraska athletic department for many years and still keeps in touch very well. You guys saw what Terry Pettit wrote today, didn't you?
I didn't.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was pretty much a bow bomb. Terry Pettit just decides to give us and that stuff's out there. Social media spreads like wildfire, and Terry Pettit's a respected guy, so that fell in our lap at about noon, and so there's one other big macro issue for us to talk about. So I guess when you're hunkering down into the details of a show every day, and at the very least, many interesting things are going on. You're having a pretty good time. We're not bored. We're never wondering. We're never wondering, God, what are we going to talk about today? It's kind of like, what are we not going to talk about today? What fat are we going to trim today? And in general, just in the ticket offices, that's how every show operates. Our morning guys, Mike Welch in the afternoon. We love this job, and it's never dull. But it is also an extreme challenge every day. There's never a shortage of things to talk about, but what specifically you choose to talk about every show and every segment of every show, which guests to book. Mm-hmm. Those are big decisions to make every day. But we love doing it. So, it would be nice to just have, a good football team to talk about every now and then.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of bittersweet for us because we're really pissed that we are not a good football team, but at the same time, our show this weekend was our biggest show, and we don't think we would have got 4,000 downloads on our podcast if we were any good. So
yeah, and when I saw you guys, because I saw you guys tweet that, when I saw Jason Peter came on our show one day after the Wisconsin game.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys remember this, but he comes on every now and then, and I try not to bother him too much. He's not doing a daily show anymore. He doesn't want to. I just asked him if he would like to come on and talk about what's going on. And this was right after the accusations. Well, actually, he was the first one to just publicly say it. He was pretty sure Rich Kaczynski was corresponding with his former players, and not in a way that was productive to their working with their new coaches, that whole thing. And, I mean, Jason Peter, as always, just, it's like you're in the locker room with them in 1997. And he just goes. And it's as good of radio, and it's as good of a feeling as a fan, whether you agree with him or not, just how much passion he has for Nebraska football. And for him, he rarely calls out the coaches. It's always about the players, and it's usually about the players' effort. And he said a lot of the same things about Callahan's teams, Bo's team, and this team. But that day, he really wanted to get the Kaczynski thing off his chest. And, again, I'd rather be talking about a top 10 ranked undefeated Nebraska football team. But, I mean, the radio gold that was and how that spread, that was a good day for our station. I'm not going to lie. The same way your podcast after a horrific, inexcusable loss was good for you guys. And that's what's great about covering. And that's what's great about covering Husker football, just in general. There's never a shortage of passion pouring out of fans, former players, and even media.
That Jason Peter interview, I mean, that was the definition of explosive. I mean, when you guys, I mean, every now and then, me and Trav we'll have a guest on, and we'll kind of look at each other like, yeah, this is good stuff. I mean, when you guys had Peter on that day, I mean, you guys had to be like, oh yeah, this is good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't? Yeah. I mean, it was kind of sit back and eat your popcorn, because there wasn't a whole lot you had to ask him. Jason just goes, and Husker fans love it. So so that's an example of, even during a really crappy football season, that you can still we just like it. We like having the discussion. There's a good discussion every day, even if it's about stuff we don't want to talk about. We call it during our first 4 seasons on the air with Bo. We had fewer of them, but we still call it the same thing now. I mean, Monday, especially the Mondays after losses, it's group therapy, and we're certainly not unusual. There have been sports radio stations that have come before us in Nebraska, but that's kind of partly what we are. It's a conversation for everybody. Beat writers, step on up. Recruiting reporters, step on up. Former players, step on up. We want your calls. We want your texts. It's Husker Nation, even though it feels like a dysfunctional family, but it's definitely kind of family group therapy every day.
John, do you ever get tired of talking about Huskers? I mean, do you ever just want to turn your phone off, turn your computer off, and just zone out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. In fact, it was so much so. I mean, that because I grew up with season tickets. My parents both went here. My uncle played for Nebraska in 70 and 71. So it's just kind of been ingrained. And so I went to UNL for college, covered the team in college, sat in the student section. And those were mostly good years of, the first 22, 23 years of my life. But I was so sick and tired of it. I was just because it's kind of boring back in the Osborne and Solich years. It was, you didn't have a whole lot of losses to talk about. It was just, seriously, it was, but you got a lot of the same coach speak on Monday press conferences from Frank Solich, and it was kind of just la-di-da. But I wanted to see something new. So I was away from the state for 9 years after college, as much as I loved it. But I mean, right now, there are times, but there was certainly a time in my life where I wanted to get away from it completely and just go live in a different part of the country. And I always knew I wanted to cover sports, but cover other sports, other teams, other levels, both above and below Nebraska football. But, I did that, and I got the opportunity to kind of do it here. And so the batteries were kind of recharged. But yeah, of course there are Of course I do. It was kind of like tonight. You guys want to do this tonight? And I'm kind of like, I did this all day. And then and then I spend another 2 or 3 hours after the show getting tomorrow's show ready, reading things, figuring out what guests I want to have. And like, do I want to spend my evening hours? Well, spend an hour doing this. And, but once you guys got me on the line, it's kind of fun. So,
it is.
But like if I go on vacation, it depends on what time of the year it is, but I'm probably going to sneak a peek, at some point in the day, especially to see what some of the, I think we have really good, really brilliant writers at both the major newspapers, and, I can't help it. But to answer your question, absolutely. I mean, don't you guys want to get away from it sometimes?
Well, we only do the podcast once a week, so.
But I'll ask you guys this: how much of the time during your free time during the day do you guys read and listen to shows and stuff like that?
All the time.
All day.
All the time.
There you go.
I literally can't get enough of it.
Yeah. It's kind of I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's a drug, but it's just kind of it's what's there, and I do get tired of it. But then I try to tell myself, well, what other line of work would you like to be in today? It's a pretty cool line of work to be in, and like I said, there aren't very many dull days. But like I already planned a road trip up to Minneapolis, and had planned on taking the Monday after the Purdue game off. Just because I thought a month or two ago, there's one day in season where, I don't need to be in there on a Monday. It's the Monday after the Purdue game. Come on. And so it was great to get away after the game, because I immediately went and left for Minnesota. But at the same time, while I was up there, could I get away from it? Could I get away from the post-game shows and Chattel's column and Sippel's column and Sam's story and Dirk's story the next day, and go to the recruiting websites to see what the recruits all are up to now? No, I couldn't get away.
Guys, John Gaskins, 93.7, the Ticket FM and the ticketfm.com. Sir, thank you for coming on to the Blackshirt Alert Show.
I apologize for all the babbling. It's kind of it's kind of what I do, and I'm not good at brevity. So I hope everybody who listened was able to kind of stay with it.
Yeah, no, it was epic, man. I mean, we've had so many former players on. We thought, well, let's try something different this go around, and you're one of the first people we thought of. So we just can't thank you enough for coming on.
I appreciate you guys for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.
All right, thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. John Gaskins, 93.7 on the Blackshirt Alert Show. Greg, you don't get a more fun privilege to talk Husker football than what we had with this man.
No, absolutely not. I mean, this guy does Husker football every day of the week.
And he does it as good as anyone.
As good as anyone. I mean, A1 top quality radio host. I mean, the things that they're doing at 93.7, I mean, those guys, they live for Husker football, and we love listening to them throughout the day. So, I mean...
one thing I love John talking about was how, they try to get former players' perspectives on the game and the season and everything. And, that's really what we're trying to do as well. We try to get perspectives from all players, past, future, and present. That's the kind of content that we're striving for. That's why we love listening to, 93.7 The Ticket.
Absolutely.
Greg, we're kind of introducing a new segment to our show. It's, we want to hear from the fans of the show. We want to bring them on, give them a couple minutes to kind of, vent, rant, do whatever they need to do, get it off their chest. Let's go ahead and get into that segment right now. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. You got a few minutes to say the things that need to be said.
Ladies and gentlemen, fan of the show, Greg Ramirez, you got 2 minutes. Say the things that need to be said.
Hey, how's it going? First off, if, this is downright ridiculous. this week alone, you come out and you got Sean Einkorst there giving us support for a losing coach saying that in the press interview, saying that he thinks that they're teaching good football. You got to be joking me. If this is good football, then, I mean, what's everybody else playing? Great football? We're one of the worst teams in the country. We're now the worst team in the Big Ten. Now, national media is starting to compare the both teams Mike Riley coached, which previously OSU and now us, and we're on the same track because Riley mismanaged. Now, let me be honest here. Riley does not deserve to be here. This was not the gig for him. And really, I think the only reason why he wanted to come here and why he took the job was because he knew he was getting canned at Oregon State. Let me be truthful about that, because that's exactly what I think is going on. My last thing I want to point out real quick is we had a chance to go out and get Kyle Whittingham. He wanted to coach Nebraska. He wanted to come here. He was a better coach from the outset record-wise alone with some of the marquee games that he played. Why is he not here? Why did Eichhorst do the things that he's done to put Nebraska in the position it is now and pretty much come out and say it's a rebuilding year? This was never a rebuild job. This was a hire now, win now job. And you totally failed, Eichhorst. He does not deserve to be here either because he's made shoddy decisions, and football's not the only one. So, one of the biggest things that need to be said is Eichhorst, you need to go. The reason why you came out with the statement was because you knew you were on the hot seat, and it's already getting around that you have border regions that aren't on your side anymore. It's because of the decisions you have made. And with that, that's all. I mean,
Gregory couldn't have said it any better, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Go Big Red, buddy.
Go Big Red.
So, Greg.
Yes, sir.
There you have it. Another segment, another fan.
Yeah, and we want to say, if you guys have something to get off your chest, contact us, tweet us, YouTube us, Facebook us, email us, whatever.
You can email me, TK at blackshirtalert.com.
Yep, and Greg at blackshirtalert.com. So
you want to come on the show? Hit us up.
Yep, all fans are welcome. The good, bad, the positive, the negative.
Let's hear it all. Let's just hear it all.
Yeah, get it out.
Lay all the cards out on the table.
Guys, I mean...
This is Husker football. What do we have to lose?
Yeah, I mean...
That's what the state is centered around, man. Husker football.
Absolutely right. And we love hearing from our fans. We know we have fans out there. We know you're listening to the show, and we want to hear from you. I mean, this is open forum here, open discussion. So,
Greg, Saturday, Michigan State coming to town.
Yes, sir. Huge game.
This is probably the biggest game that we're going to have in our stadium in the past 3-4 years. This is a huge game. Monumental game.
Monumental. I mean, we touched on it with, John Gaskins, 93.7, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, our teammate, our record looks terrible, but this is still a big game for Mike Riley. I mean, if the team can step up and give 110% effort on every down, which we didn't necessarily see in the Purdue game, then I don't know. Like we said, Mike Riley occasionally throws an upset in here and there. So I think this would be, if you're going to do an upset, this is the game to do it.
Greg, one thing that we talk about is, how do we get behind this program when things are so bleak? You start this Saturday.
Right.
Okay, you come up with a game plan, and you execute it to perfection, and you go out there and you get that damn W.
That's what you do.
There was no excuses to get blown out by Purdue. It was an ugly game. It's over with. It's behind us. Let's move forward. Let's kick Michigan State's ass.
Period. Kick some ass.
Can we do it? I don't know. But I want to, and I'm going to support this team to hopefully will them to some sort of miraculous victory, and it's going to be huge. One thing Bo Pelini lacked during his time here was a signature win. I think his best win was against Missouri in 2009 when they were like 5th in the nation. Missouri didn't really end up having that great of a year. Michigan State is having a fantastic year. It's late in the year, 3 games left. You go out there, you make a statement, you win this. That is a signature win, and it's something that every fan can be proud of. It's going to bring everyone close together. We're going to get a lot of crap going. Recruiting, everything, like media buzz, positives all around. Go out there and get this win, guys.
Got a score prediction, Trav?
Greg, I'm going to say we fight hard. I think, after this Purdue loss, even the players are down. I think they're going to come out fighting. I think they're going to come out fighting pretty hard. I still got Michigan State by 10, but I'm still hopeful for an upset.
Guys, I know I've been a little down the last few weeks. I think, call me crazy, I'm going to defy logic. Nebraska win by a field goal.
Greg, you know what? I'm just going to throw my hat in there. Week 3, I said we were going to beat Michigan State. We're going to beat Michigan State.
There you go. That a boy.
I'll throw my homer cap in the ring. I don't care.
There you go.
We're going to win. Guys, this is the Blackshirt Alert Show. Thank you for listening. See you next week. Go Big Red.